So I picked up a little something special over the weekend, and I'd like you to take a guess as to what you think it is. Nope, it's not bamboo. It's actually... What do you want this time?
They're not gonna think it's bamboo, Carl.
Oh yeah, and why's that?
You wrote sugarcane in the title.
You know what? I don't have to put up with your crap.
Crap?
It's hard enough making an entire video a week while holding a full-time job and going to kendo practice and streaming without you inserting your stupid opinions every 5 seconds. If you're so smart, you can record the videos from now on.
Wait, for real?
I quit.
Hey, folks.
So a lot of you may not know this, but when I started college, I actually was studying agriculture and not Japanese. So one thing that interested me about moving from Michigan to a subtropical island in Japan is how different the crops are here, sugarcane included. In Michigan's climate, you can't grow sugarcane, so the vast majority of our sugar comes from sugar beets. So given that I'd never seen sugarcane before, and now I was seeing it literally every day, I started to get really curious as to how sugar started like this, and eventually turned into this. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how sugarcane is harvested and processed into sugar, and then I'm going to be trying to do it myself. And if you're good, I'll teach you how you can use your own sugar at home to make some delicious caramel popcorn. Interestingly enough, it was actually pretty hard to get my hands on sugarcane, even though I see it around every day. Similar to iron ore, sugarcane is a raw material that isn't really useful at all until it's refined into something that is like sugar. So because the only entities that want to buy sugarcane are sugar mills, farmers don't really sell them individually because no residential customer is dumb enough to want to go through the hassle of processing the sugar themselves. Except for me, that is. But after asking around a lot and getting a lot of puzzled responses, I finally lucked out and found out that one of my kendo instructors is actually a sugarcane farmer. So he graciously agreed to give me some and let me film on his farm. So on a cloudy Saturday morning, we drove out to his fields and we got to work. He actually owned a decent plot of land, and he said all his sugarcane would probably sell for 1,400,000 yen, which is about $10,000 if I got my decimal point in the right place. I asked him how much it would cost for me to buy the cane that he did give me, and he was like, the 2 bundles would be about 7 yen, so don't worry about it. So given that I got it for free, I figured the least I can do is make him something sweet with any sugar I get. March is prime harvest season, and usually big fields like this would get harvested by a giant combine, of course, but since he was only getting me a few canes, he showed me how they used to do it by hand. First, he used this sharp hoe-like tool to chop the cane off at the ground. Unfortunately, some had been blown over by the typhoons last season, but most of them were okay. He then pulled out this really cool looking sickle tool with a special head attachment and used that to cut the top of the cane off. I was told that the vast majority of the sugar concentrates in the bottom half of the cane, so the top half is just waste. He chopped off any of the roots that may have been growing on the lower parts, and then used a special head part to strip any of the leaves off of the cane. Finally, he cut them in half and tied them up so they could actually fit in my car. As an added bonus, he cut the bark off of one of the canes and then handed it to me for a little taste test. It was surprisingly tough and I couldn't bite anything off. I had to just kind of suck the juices out, and when I did, it was actually surprisingly sweet. Now I know what you're thinking. Duh, Carl, of course it's sweet. It's sugar cane. But I've made maple syrup before, another famously sweet substance, and the sap from a sugar maple is nowhere near as sweet as the sap from a sugar cane. But now for the actual hard part. I somehow need to take something like this and make it into something like this. This is actual brown sugar made from sugar cane from the island, by the way, so that's pretty cool. Now, if I were a sugar mill, I would have a bunch of fancy industrial equipment to clean, juice, and refine the sugar out of the cane. But, unfortunately, I'm just a guy. Since the sugar cane is so tough, I don't think it would be a wise idea to use my own blender to try to juice it. So I'm going to try to use a different method that I saw on the internet. So here's the plan. First, I'm going to wash all the dirt off the canes. Second, I'll use my potato peeler to remove the skin. Third, I'll use my pruning shears to chop them into little bite-sized pieces. And fourth, I'll put them in a pot, cover them with water, and boil them to hopefully extract all the flavor. Alright, so the point here is not to boil it down into a syrup. The point here is to use hot water to extract all the sap and all the sugar from the cane. In the factory, this is the point where they just blend it up to get everything out, but I don't have the machinery to do that. So we'll just put a lid on it and let it simmer until the cane itself doesn't taste sweet, and then we know that we've pulled all the sugar out of it.
So here's my method. Once it starts bubbling up like this, it means it's thick enough that the bubbles can actually rise up, which means that there is enough sugar content that it's approaching a syrup more than a sap. So I'll turn the heat off, let it simmer down for a bit, and you can kind of see on top there's some impurities. The brown stuff in the center. So if we kind of mix this around, let it flatten back out, you can kind of see there's some brown impurities on there. So what I do is I pour it on the cake pan, and I'm super careful to try and not pour off the crud on top. So hopefully I'll be leaving some of that behind. It's to mixed success, but so as you can see, most of that crud is left behind. So then we wash it. Wash that stuff out. I don't know what this is, probably like cellulose or something like that, but we want it out of there. So then we take the strainer, put it in, take this off the stove. This has been boiling the entire time that was. We pour this in there. And I do this twice for every batch, so this was the second time, so it goes in the compost. Now you can see there's a bunch of junk floating around in there. I'll probably need to strain that again. But in any case, we have this really wide pan to help spread it out and increase the rate at which water can evaporate, and I put it in my refrigerator because it's dry in here. I don't know how much this helps, but I put my sugarcane in the freezer in the hopes that when it freezes, it'll like break open the cell walls and make it easier to extract the sugar. But yeah, just a matter of filling this back up. Filling it up with water, but not too much. We don't want it boiling over on us. And then we put the heat on and say goodbye to our gas bill. And then, yeah, all we got is that much left. Okay, folks, you really want to keep an eye on your stuff, because, yeah, this can happen real fast. Okay, so apparently this crud is just impossible to get out, so screw me, I guess. I still have all this plus the big old bag in the freezer to do, but hopefully the stuff I've gotten so far will be good enough, because I don't want to get all this burn flavor into my sugar. Okie dokie, it's currently Friday morning, and here's where I'm at. I've got a decent amount of syrup. My wok is still out of commission. I have no idea how long it's going to take before I can clean it. So I think my best bet is just to throw these back in the refrigerator and pray. I'm going to do the cooking tomorrow, and if I'm going to be honest, given that this molasses has been sitting in there all week and still has not dried out, I don't think I'm going to be actually getting granulated sugar, but it should still work for my purposes. So catch you on the flip side.
Oh boy, 3 a.m. So you might be wondering, Carl, why are you awake at 3 a.m.? Well, all of yesterday I had a bit of the rumbly tummy, frequent trips to the bathroom, all that good stuff. And then when I went to my boss's going away party, I headed to the bathroom and was greeted by this monstrosity. And after successfully using it once, I realized that given my symptoms weren't going away, it was probably best that I excused myself and went home. And accordingly, because I felt so crappy, I went to bed at 8 p.m. and now I'm awake at 3 a.m. I do feel much better, but yeah, might as well do something productive if I'm awake this early, right? So here's what I'm working with. After boiling all that crud down, I've got this really thick syrup. Unfortunately, since I didn't have any way to properly dehydrate it other than trying to stick it in my fridge, you can see it's very much not a granulated sugar. It is a syrup. Like if you touch it, like it sticks. Even the stuff I did first that burnt a little bit, it's still hard. But it's not granulated sugar. Like it still is like a really thick. It's like molasses, honestly. Okay, for comparison, I got 6 different kinds of sugars. The first one is the molasses-like syrup that I got from the sugarcane. The second one is from the first batch that kind of burnt, so I set it aside. Third, we have some regular granulated white sugar from the supermarket. Fourth, we have some regular granulated brown sugar from the supermarket. Fifth, we have some special brown sugar made from the sugarcane on the island. that I got at a local market. And finally, for the memes, I got some Peeps marshmallow trees because let's be honest, I ain't gonna eat these otherwise. Okay, first things first, I'd like to see just how different each of the flavors is for each of these sugars. So first up, the cane syrup. Whew. Oh, yeah, that's really sweet. Like really, 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 really sweet. It tastes like sugar mixed with molasses, which makes sense because when they make sugar, they separate the white sugar and the molasses. And brown sugar is the white sugar with some of the molasses added back in. And molasses is a syrup, it's not a granulated sugar, which is probably why these never fully solidified. So next up, the overcooked one. Ah, oh god. Holy cow. Yeah, unfortunately, it tastes just like the other one except a little burnt. So that stinks. All right, next up we have our standard white sugar. As you'd expect, it's just sweet. Has no other flavor other than sweet. Okay, we have the supermarket bought brown sugar. I've always been a bigger fan of brown sugar. To be honest, I used to add it to my banana sandwiches back home. Yeah, tastes better. Has that a little bit of that molasses flavor in it, but not too strong. Pretty good. Second to last, we have the local brown sugar made from cane from the island. Much coarser. Surprisingly, the flavor of molasses is actually a bit weaker here. I wonder how they process that. And finally, the marshmallow Peeps. I've never been a fan of these because it's just literally sugar. Yep, that's a marshmallow. But while that's all fine and good, no one just really eats sugar straight up. So, probably wasn't the best idea to do that after having an upset stomach. I gotta head out. So anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, people don't just eat sugar. So I want to do a taste test where I make a snack that has a high sugar content in order to kind of actually eat something that people would eat with sugar. And like I told you all at the start of the video, if you're good, I'd show you how to make caramel popcorn. And if you watch this far, you're not just good, you're the best. So in addition to the sugar, here's what you'll need. Popcorn, butter, cooking salt, baking soda, and some form of cooking oil. And without further ado, let's begin. Okie dokie, the first thing you're going to want to do is grab a pot and its lid. And we're going to take our cooking oil and we're going to lightly cover the bottom of the pan. Just enough so that when it's heated up, it can spread out and cover the whole bottom. Now, you're going to take your popcorn and you're going to put exactly 3 kernels in. And what these are going to do is they're going to tell us when the popcorn is hot enough to pop. So we'll put it on medium heat and then wait a bit. Maybe spread the oil around as it heats up. So I'm going to use white sugar because that's what the recipe calls for. But I can and have used other forms of sugar to great success. Oh, there's 1. There's 2. Waiting on number 3. There's 3. Okay, so that means it's officially hot enough to start popping. So I'm going to add a whole lot because I'm going to be making 6 batches of this thing. So you want to do about like a 6 of this. Now this might just pop overflow, but I got this bowl ready just for that occasion. So that's a whole package. You want to just kind of wiggle it back and forth to make sure all the heat is distributed and the oil is touching all the kernels. Not gonna lie, that just cooled it down substantially. So I hope everything's gonna be okay. Oh, there we go. It's getting close to the top. You want to be extra careful that nothing burns. Shaking it up can help avoid the same popcorn from sticking on the bottom. Alright, it's starting to stop, so I'm going to turn the heat off. Let it sit. Shake it a bit. Let everything finish popping that needs to finish popping before it explodes on me. Alright, now time to pour it off. Yeah, I probably put too much in there. There's a few burned kernels on the bottom, but that'll be fine. I got too impatient, and look, burnt kernels on the bottom. This won't happen if you do a 1 serving size. The fact that I was trying to get away with doing 6 at once definitely did not help. So what I'm doing here is I'm shaking it to sift down all of these small kernels that got burnt. So hopefully these should be all the unburnt ones. You want to be extra careful because anything that's burnt, the taste will 100% show up in the final product. So I'm just going to be safe and pour all these off. Now again, since I'm making 6 different things for myself, I'm going to make a very small amount of melted sugar. So be prepared for that. If you're making it yourself, you might want to use more. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my sugar in the pan. I'm going to turn it on to low heat. I'm going to keep stirring it. You can use the lid to try to speed the process up, but you're going to be stirring it. So once it heats up, you're going to want to take that lid right off. So now you see it started melting. Now again, you're probably going to want a lot more if you're making it for more people, but for our purposes, this is just fine. You want to be super careful. Sugar melts at a higher temperature than boiling water, and it sticks to your skin. So if you get this on you, it's going to burn you more and longer than boiling water. So you got to be super careful. All right, so now that it's nice and melted, we're going to turn the heat a little bit down. See how it's browning there? That's the caramelization. So that's good. So now that it's browned, you're going to turn the heat off. Boom. You do not want to burn. If you do this for too long, it will burn. And like I said, if it burns at all, the taste will come through the final product. All right, so now that the heat's off, really quick, we're going to add a little bit of salt. Optional, if you want that salted caramel flavor. We're going to add a little bit of butter. You want to be quick because you don't want the sugar to cool down too much, because you're going to see why in a sec. So a little bit of butter, plop that in there, mix that all around. It's going to get a lovely creamy flavor in there. All right, and the secret ingredient is the baking soda I talked about earlier. So what you're going to do is, you're going to sprinkle that in there and then mix it around. And what that does is the heat reacts with the baking soda and it makes it really nice and puffy. Probably put a little bit too much butter in there because it's so small, it's kind of hard. Yep, that's too much butter. But it's puffy. So what the final step is, we're going to take our popcorn and we're going to put it in there. Probably a good amount of popcorn. And we're just going to mix it around. And because we put the baking soda in there, it started puffing up real nice. And it's much easier to cover the popcorn evenly. Now, of course, if you want a more sweet popcorn, you can add more sugar. And if you want a less sweet popcorn, you can add more popcorn or less sugar. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mix this around until it completely cools. You can see now it's kind of like oozing. We don't want that. We want to keep mixing it around until it cools down completely and hardens. Hopefully we've done that right. The white sugar has caramelized. You can see it's now a very nice brown color without burning. And we should get that lovely, rich caramel flavor. I did add a little too much butter, it looks like, so it's going to be a little greasy. But if you don't add too much butter, it most likely won't get greasy at all. So now you can see these things are bouncing around. They're probably still a little hot. Well, they're not too hot. There you go. So, taste test will be after. But next thing for me to do is wash this out, do this 5 more times with the 5 different sugars, and then we'll give them a taste. Okay, I'm back. I had breakfast. I took a little nap. I feel a lot better now. So, without further ado, let's get into the taste test portion. Here I have little baggies full of all the popcorn that I made. This one was from the white sugar. This one was from the store-bought brown sugar. This one is from the local brown sugar. This one is from the syrup that I made. This one is from the syrup that I burnt. And this one is made from the Peeps. So here's my plan. I'm going to blindfold myself, put them all in this bag, shake it up. Then one by one, I'm going to take them out, sample them, tell you which one I think it is, and then rank which ones I like best at the end. So without further ado. Okay. All right, number 1. I feel like this has like a popcorn ball flavor. Like it kind of tastes like Lucky Charms. Like that marshmallow in. So I'm going to say this is the Peeps. It's not too strong. Probably could have stood to use more sugar, but... Alright, number 2. This one almost has like no flavor. Comparatively. I'm getting a little bit. I'm going to say, because it has so little flavor, I'm going to say this is the white popcorn. Oh, that's a syrupy one. I can smell it. And it's not crispy. It is still a little liquidy. It's definitely got that molasses flavor. This one's a little less crunchy, so I think it's might be the other one. But it doesn't smell like it, though. I think maybe this one's the burnt one, this one's the unburnt one. Or maybe that's the brown one. You know what I'm going to say? Peeps, white, burnt, not burnt, brown. I think this is the local stuff. All right, so let's recap. So Peeps, white, burned, not burned, brown, local. I think surprisingly, I like what I think is the burned stuff the best. And then maybe the local one, and then the brown sugar, and then the not burned one, and then the Peeps, and then the normal sugar. So let's do the big reveal. All right, the one that I thought was Peeps, was the white sugar. So this is the typical white sugar. Oh God. And then this was Peeps, and then this was the syrup. Okay, so this was not the burnt stuff. This was the burnt stuff. Okay, interesting. So wrong. This was the local stuff, the stuff made on the island. And then this was the regular brown stuff. So I got none of them right. These were switched, and these were switched. Well, okay, so with that, my sugary journey has come to an end. Honestly, it was really interesting seeing how sugar, or at least one way that sugar can be extracted and created from sugarcane. I think knowing where our food comes from is one of those inherently valuable things, and I'm glad that I did this. So is it something I'll think about doing again next year? No! Sure, I'm glad I got this experience, but was the experience actually fun? Not really. Having to chop all the sugarcane up into tiny pieces and then boiling it to extract all the juice, and then boiling that juice down to a syrup is much more trouble than it's worth. Do you know how much energy it takes to heat and boil water? More than most materials. My gas bill will probably be through the roof, not to mention it took up both of my burners the entire time, and I had to pay attention to it to make sure it didn't boil down too far, and because I screwed up and wasn't watching it close enough that one time, it ruined my wok. It still is not clean. It's sitting there soaking in my sink right now. I wanted to make noodles while I was doing this. Can't. My pot was in use. And it probably doesn't help that I'm a little bit sick right now still, but now the smell of that syrup just kind of turns my stomach. Overall, if you want to do this to have the experience or impress your coworker, knock yourself out. But if you want to do it because you want sugar, just go buy it from the store. The factories have been doing this for years and years. They have all the proper machinery to actually blend it all up, use filters instead of heating to pull out all the sugar, and then package it up into the proper proportion of white sugar and molasses so you can actually get nice brown sugar that doesn't taste too strong. So sorry to end this video on a negative note, but hey, I did it so you don't have to. And as always, folks, if you want to chat about this with me, you can contact me on any of my socials, especially my Twitch. I'm always happy to talk to people about my videos on there. See you next Sunday. Bye.